This week, I am joined once again by the fabulous Emma Cossey. If you haven't listened to the first installment of our conversation, then please do go back and listen to last week's episode because believe me, there were some right gems. And there are more in this episode. Of course, there are. It's two smart women having a smart conversation. Of course, there are going to be some great takeaways. So, get comfy, get listening, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome to Your Biz, Your Rules, the podcast for business-minded go-getters hosted by me, your favourite brain and biz coach, Daire Paddy. This is the spot for those of you ready to blend heart and head, woo and do, income and impact, change and chill, and so much more. So grab yourself a cuppa and let's get started. So I am back with Emma. Hello, Emma. Let's dive straight in.
Excellent. Let's go.
Let's go. What is a rule that you have either created or adopted in your business?
Well, I would say adopted because it's something I think I've either taken inspiration from other people to do, and that is to just experiment and have fun with things more. So the main people that have taught me that is you. Definitely, we've always had chats about experimentation. I think Elizabeth Goddard's stuff has taught me that a lot, to just experiment and try different things. And Ruth Pound-White definitely has taught me a lot about letting kind of go of the outcome and just experimenting and seeing how things work. And yeah, so I think experimenting has always been an element of my business. I'm always trying new apps and tools, as you know, but I think experimenting in the way that I do business has definitely been a much bigger thing over the last couple of years. And I suppose we all had to adapt a bit after lockdown and things like that, but I have definitely found myself throwing things out there and experimenting, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter.
So how would you say that that's impacted you on a broader scale, this sort of ability to experiment?
I think, and I know last week we talked a lot about skipping the corporate rules and things like that, but it's allowed me to also kind of let go of all the courses out there and all of the concepts out there about consistency and how you have to do the same thing over and over again. And you have to do things a set way, and there's a proper way to do an Instagram, and there's a proper way to do LinkedIn, and there's a proper way to do all these things. And even my podcast, there's a proper way that I should be doing it. I should be editing the sound much better and get it. You know, there's lots of different things that are shoulds, and experimenting allows me to overcome all of that. So it's really freeing just to say, I'm going to experiment with this on Instagram because I feel like it might be fun. Or I'm going to try this, I'm trying a new podcast episode. It's just an experiment. If it doesn't work out, then I think the key thing is with the word experiment is if you fail, it's not really a failure because it was an experiment in the first place. It's just something you've tried and you learn from, and then you try something else. And I think treating a lot of things in your business as an experiment can really stop you focusing on failures or successes.
Okay, so what are some of the quote unquote failed experiments that you've experienced?
There are workshops and services that I've launched, and while the initial feedback was great, they just didn't go to plan, or I didn't enjoy doing them, and then I just stopped promoting them or stopped putting them out there because it just wasn't working for me. I wasn't feeling excited. And even with any of those kind of things, it's never been wasted time because I've created some content. I just need to work out a better way to do it that's a better fit for my audience, or a better fit for me, or something I'm more excited about. So it's never wasted time. It's always something I learn from. There are things I've done in my membership, like I tried to do a book club in my membership, but it just didn't work for the group. Just trying to think what else. Well, I guess one example this week was I was launching a Voxer group thing, and I was really excited about it. I still really like the concept, but this week it didn't quite work because at the time of recording we are in the run up to the Queen's funeral. it's just not a great time. So I'm going to push that experiment back to a later date. So sometimes the experiments just get moved around and things like that. They might be experimenting with a new tool or software and it just doesn't work at all. I bought through AppSumo, which is, if you've never tried it, basically crack if you like apps or tools. So I wouldn't recommend it if you do, because it's like Groupon for apps and tools and things like that, and you tend to get them in quite early. I picked up an amazing piece of software for memberships. Really excited about it because you can host courses in there and there's loads of really great stuff in there. It's a beautiful one as well, really fun to play with. And then I chatted with my membership, and the vast majority of people just don't want to move away from a Facebook group. So buying it was an experiment, but the reality is it didn't work out because it's not right for the audience. I might still use it for something else, so it's not complete waste of time. And also I think with AppSumo you can return things if you don't use them or something like that, so I might look into that. But yeah, I guess those are some of the ways that I have tried things and experimented and they haven't quite worked out.
So first of all, I'm with you on the book club thing. Like, I really wanted to have a book club for my client only Facebook group, and it just never took off, and it made me so sad because I love books and I love talking about books, but it just didn't work for the community.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, because there are other book clubs I'm in where it works really well, but I don't know if it's Facebook, I don't know if it's too relaxed and people need a lot more structure with the reading, or maybe I needed to focus on, well, we were focusing on business books, but I think maybe instead of having something monthly where we checked in, I almost needed a prompt every week and like get to this number of pages or something like that, which provided people with more structure. But again, it's just things we learn, isn't it?
I wonder if a good experiment would be trying a fiction book club, because like in our spaces they're already getting a lot of information. Like we already teach, we coach, we provide people with things to think about. Maybe what they need is like fun books.
But then does it become a non-necessity? Because if they're doing a business one, people can convince themselves that they need to get this done. Whereas with fiction, because it's an enjoyable hobby, I think sometimes that can be, when attached to a business community, if that makes sense.
It can. However, linking back to what we were talking about last week, it's like, why does something have to be efficient and productive to be worthy? Why can't it just be pleasurable?
You're completely right. Yeah, no, you're completely right. See, we slip back into these things sometimes and we need to be pulled back. Yeah, it's really interesting. It might be worth trying. And yeah, I am in a couple of other book clubs. One that is more about reading a more diverse range, or a range of books that are by more diverse readers. And then one on a Discord server through a Patreon. And I really enjoy that actually, because it's separate from Facebook, I think. So I think that's maybe sometimes it's just the network it's on.
I'm also in a Discord book club and I do love it for that.
Isn't that interesting? Like, it's the same thing. You're typing the same thing, but just having a different place. And also I've noticed I'm just trying to remember what it's called. What's the gaming platform where people, Twitch. I'm in a couple now where you can co-read basically. So it's you watch somebody reading or working and you can do it along with them, and then there's like chat breaks, and then maybe that would be a really interesting way to do it, so that you'd have maybe like a read along and then you'd have breaks to talk about what has happened so far.
Yeah, so there are quite a few communities like that available if you go down like the reading side of YouTube. So there are a lot of, they call themselves booktubers, just so you know. Yeah. But a lot of them have membership sites via like Patreon and other platforms like that, which have like Discord servers where you can communicate, and they'll often like have monthly buddy reads and like reading sprints where you can go on a live, and they'll like set Pomodoro timers or something like that where you can read and chat. And that's really nice, especially if you want to prioritize reading more, like reading for pleasure. And it's something that really helped me probably towards the like middle of last year, when I felt like I was really like disconnected from hobbies. So I felt like everything I was doing was either work related or it was housework related or it was something like that. And so getting into one of those communities really helped me sort of start just engaging with the hobby again. And I think like going back to what we were talking about last week of me being an upholder, like often if there's an external expectation and me showing up somewhere, I'm more likely to follow through.
It's interesting because in the business world, I've noticed there's very much a trend towards. So we had DIY before, which would be in courses to teach you how to do yourself things yourself, done for you, which is where you would do it for them. So like in the past, we both had social media experience, so that would be us coming in doing their social media for them. But I'm seeing done with you becoming more and more popular, especially I think with the rise of things like Boxer and like Discord and things like that and Slack. People now are wanting the information, but also the accountability, the body doubling, the support to actually allocate that time to do it. And that seems to be applying it again to hobbies and life stuff as well. And even you mentioned cleaning there, but there's TikToks where they've got like body doubling sessions where you can join people and cleaning the kitchen at the same time, and YouTube definitely massively on YouTubers, aren't there, on YouTube. So I definitely think that done for you trend is a really, really done with you trend, is definitely a popular one for both work and play.
Yeah, and like an example of experimentation in action.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's fun. Basically, it's more fun if you do it with other people sometimes. I mean, sometimes I just enjoy reading a book on my own, but it's nice. It's like if you go, if you go see a movie, you want to talk to other people about what they thought about the movie, or when people are watching Stranger Things, they want to go on Twitter and talk about how amazing it was.
And I think particularly if you're going through a moment where like consciously you want to do the thing, but for some reason you just can't get yourself to do it.
Yeah.
Then having that done with you dynamic is really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree completely. Like it absolves you of the guilt because you're doing it with other people. And sometimes you feel like you're doing it for other people, which is where the upholder or the obliger side can kick in.
So bringing it back to experiments, we've talked about experiments that maybe didn't go so well. What about the other side of that? So what are some of your favorite experiments that you've played around with in your business?
My business lounge membership, definitely, because I didn't know what it would be like. And we've kind of collectively in the group experimented with different things. And I love it. Like it's just the nicest, warmest group of people. And we talk a lot on calls about experimenting, actually, and everyone kind of trades tips and suggestions and things. So that's definitely been a big one. Oh, what else? I mean, I suppose my podcast has always been a bit of an experiment and trying different things with it. And it allows me to be kind of creative and do some different things. Like I'm currently experimenting with setting up what's called SpeakPipe, but it's like a voicemail where people can contribute things like voice messages so that I can basically include a lot more people on it. So I don't know how that's going to go, but I'm really enjoying doing it. It's really fun, and I love anything that involves some kind of collaboration with other people. What else has done it well? Voxer definitely. Voxer was an experiment. I love using Voxer in my business now. If you've never used it, it's like WhatsApp in that you can send voice and text messages and files and things like that. But the kind of key thing is you can hear that person as they're recording. So there's more of a walkie-talkie kind of side of it, and it just flows a lot better. And I absolutely love providing coaching through it because it's just so much more fun, so much more relaxed. There's so much more flexibility. Like I have some clients who might be unloading the shopping while we're talking, or they might be hiding in the kitchen while the kids are doing something. So it gives people more flexibility to do something, or walking home from the school run or going out for a walk. And so that's been really fun. And one thing I've been experimenting with a friend of mine, Heather, this year is workshops, which is where we do coaching workshops, but was walking around a very pretty park near us with lots of lakes and things like that. And they have a beautiful cafe that has a balcony that you can look out onto the lake. So we sit there and do our written work afterwards with who's attended. And that's been really fun to do something that's, again, collaborative, but we weren't seeing it happen very often elsewhere. And I think after 2 years of being cooped up, it was nice to do something outside, really. So yeah, I guess those are a few of the ways that I have experimented with things that has gone well.
I love that so many of the examples you've given there involve other people.
Yeah.
Because experimentation, like, it can be, but it doesn't always have to be about, you know, you have this genius idea and you just want to run with it. Sometimes it can be almost like a response to something that you've seen or something that you're talking about with other people. Yeah. Especially when you run any kind of membership or group program or anything like that, co-creating the experience with the people in there can really help you have amazing results. Because, and I know that, like, this is my experience, I will sit down and I will create something and I will be in love with the idea of this program. Like, I will think it's the absolute bee's knees.
Yeah.
And there will be parts of that is true. But then when people start doing it for the first time and, you know, like, real people with real problems and real lives start interacting with the things that I put together, I notice things that I didn't think of before or I didn't see before. And if you're willing to be open to receiving feedback like that, even if it's not necessarily explicit feedback that somebody's giving you, you can make little tweaks to something and make it even better, so that then when you come to sell it next time, it's a lot easier for you to do. People get even better results. And having that willingness to sort of co-create the experience with others, it will set you apart. Because I cannot tell you how many unbelievably arrogant coaches and teachers I've come into contact with who don't even consider that, you know, somebody else's thoughts or feelings might be valid. They just think, no, I've designed this system and that's what we're going to go with. And those are the people who I see the most discontented results of. So when people are in their groups, they have the most to moan about, the most to critique. Whereas if you're willing to, like, test and try things with your people, it's the absolute reverse.
Yeah, and I think also not deciding this is the perfect final version, nothing could be changed. Like you were saying, with those kind of people, there's no room for that experimentation and that change and things like that. And I think that's when the difficult one. And I think the other thing about co-creation is it gives you some accountability. So I'm not a finisher. My brilliant VA Jo is, and Heather, who I'm working with on the co-walking, on the workshops, she's brilliant as well at that. And I'm good with the creativity, the ideas, the Canva stuff and all that kind of thing, but I struggle with that. And if I'm honest, with the workshops, if it was, say, the second one, we didn't sell as many, I would have given up, because that's just, I kind of would have lost interest. But knowing that we were both really excited about it, we had loads of conversations, we carried on, and I think we're like on the 5th or 6th one. And, you know, there have definitely been things I've experimented with, and then I've lost interest. And I think if I'd had another person there supporting me or working with me or something like that, I would have pushed it more and sold more. So yeah, I definitely think there is something to say for that kind of element as well, of it makes it better when you bring people on board and other people are invested in it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of having different types of relationships in your business, whether that is like accountability buddies, coaches, mentors, partners, whatever, because it really does change things. Because I know, like, I'm sometimes the same way. Like, if I am doing something and it doesn't work out the way I want it on the timeline that I've invented in my head, I'm like, well, fine, I'll do something else.
Yeah.
But if I've got somebody in my corner, even if it's just a friend who I've brought on board to, like, cheer me on, it changes the dynamic. And instead of being like, okay, I'm giving up, I'm done, I'm just gonna stomp my foot and try something new, I'd be like, okay, how else can I look at this? do I just need to take a break? Should I talk about it in a different way? Is the messaging like in need of a tweak? Like, what is it that isn't quite working here? And sometimes just having another person in the room with you, like metaphorically speaking, is enough to sort of make you stay with those amazing ideas that you've had and follow through with them a little bit more, because it can be really demoralizing, you know, when you try something that you're in love with and it just doesn't seem to go anywhere. And that's not to say that every idea is one to follow through with, but sometimes just having a person to bounce those conversations around with helps you figure out whether it is genuinely, you know what, it's not a goer, I'm moving on, or if you're just trying to run because it's got hard.
Yeah. And you almost need the creative and the consistent one, like the one person being creative and one being consistent. But that role can change day to day. And then sometimes you're both the creatives and sometimes, but you need kind of that, you do need a little bit of that balance. And I'm very rarely the consistent one, but it's nice to have that balance, I think.
I bet that your clients would say otherwise.
My clients would say otherwise because I have a structure around me that allows me to be consistent where I need to be. So
exactly.
Yeah. So my newsletter goes out every week because I have a VA. I send my newsletter to. I know I need to send it to her because I've got the accountability. That always gets done. And I'm consistent with my clients because there's that accountability, isn't there? So I think the harder bits are the consistency where you don't have someone wait. Like, I think with social media in particular, it can be really hard to be consistent on because you don't, unless you're a big creator, you don't necessarily have someone who's waiting for your next post on a particular day because they know that you always post on, say, Tuesdays or wherever.
Mm-hmm. So in conclusion, stop trying to do business alone.
Yes. And honestly, I think this is almost going back to the corporate conversation we had last week, where almost in the corporate world, you're almost taught that everyone's kind of against each other. And if you go for a promotion, people are against each other. And that's really not the case in the freelance self-employed world. And I think you'll find most people love collaborating. They do better when they collaborate. I mean, you and I have done it a bunch of times in the past. We've both been on other people's podcasts this week or vice versa. And it's so much more fun when you get to collaborate with other people. Everybody benefits. So yeah, it's just, yeah, it's lovely. It's lovely. And people aren't competitive in the same way because I think everybody understands that everyone has a different audience. So someone that might come to, like you and I are both coaches, but we would have completely different audiences who would work with us. There might be some in the Venn diagram, there might be some crossover, but I never think like that we're competing or anything because the fit would be different from every different client. I'm babbling now, sorry.
No, it's true. And I don't know if this is just a me thing, but I am so okay with recommending a different coach to somebody. Like if somebody's talking to me and they're saying like, oh, like this is the problem that I'm having, can you help me? If I think like you or another coach that I know would be the perfect person to help them with that thing, then I make that connection. Like I don't cling on to people and be like, yes, my precious, like I can help this with this. Even if I could on a certain level, if I know that they, for example, are a neurodivergent freelancer who is really struggling to get things together, I would be like, Emma's the perfect person to support you with this. I mean, I could do an okay job, but she's the one.
Yeah, because we basically want what's best for our clients, potential clients our friends or you know, our community.
Yeah. And remember that collaboration can look like so many different things. Yes, it can be, you know, referring clients, it can be interviewing each other, it can be creating offers together, so like your workshops. It can even be things like co-working or like masterminding together, so having like a peer-led mastermind kind of situation. Collaborations don't always have to be, you know, in front of the camera in the spotlight. They can be what takes place behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's it's really, really lovely to see I think some of the behind the scenes, like if you go to like a summit, I mean, most people now just go to virtual ones, but back in the day, it was always really nice to go to summits and even, yeah, just the sharing of ideas. And it's rare that I will meet up with a freelance friend and not come away with some ideas in my notepad on my phone. You know, just it naturally comes from that, but that's not the whole purpose. But yeah, I think connection is very, very important. And I'm an introvert, so I don't want to do it a lot. But it's, yeah, even actually collaboration could be the tiniest thing, like sharing someone's story on Instagram for your potential client, your audience. So yeah, it can be the tiniest of things and the stuff in the background, like you said.
I was just like thinking, I remember we actually met at an event, didn't we? Like a real in-person event, which feels wild.
I know. Yeah, they don't happen very often now, do they? Because they're all
when was that, like 2013, 2014, something like that?
Yeah, was that Blognix or was that? Yeah.
So it was an event for bloggers, and I think we were in a similar position of neither of us wanting to get into the hubbub of the room and talk to loads of strangers. So we just talk to each other instead.
No, and it's always, I will always move, if I'm walking into a room full of people, I will always move towards like the cakes and the coffee, because that's so much easier than the throng of people.
So we've been talking a lot about experimentation here, and I know that you've recently found out that you have ADHD. So have any of your experiments really supported you with that diagnosis and still managing to run your business?
Yeah, so I've just been diagnosed this year, so I'm 37 now, but I think it was just before my 37th birthday. And I think I've managed to cope relatively well in the last few years because something allows me to adapt my life to some of these neurodivergent or the ADHD, basically my ADHD brain. I've been able to adapt a lot. So I use a lot of workflows. I use a lot of automation to take a lot of the human error out. I have a VA who double checks my newsletter to make sure there's no mistakes. I have loads of reminders, and I have Sansama that I use every day to go through everything and plan out my day and block it. There's a lot of tools that I've always put in place, not really realizing that these were basically all systems and structures to allow me to be more, I'm going to do air quotes, neurotypical, without even realizing. So I think I've always built my business in a way that probably hid a lot of my ADHD-ness. If I'd stayed in the corporate world, I don't know if I would have got diagnosed earlier. I definitely now look back and think that was an ADHD problem. That was an ADHD problem. And I never functioned well in the corporate world. So yeah, I think I've kind of always put stuff in place, but it's only this year that I've realized how much of that is in place to help me run my business as someone with ADHD.
Is there anything that you've let go of since getting your diagnosis?
Consistency. The whole concept of being consistent works fantastically, I'm sure, for neurotypical people. It does not work well for me. I need to be able to have flexibility. There are 4 kind of things and I've got it on a poster in my office to remind me, with any tasks that I need to do that are challenging, I have to make them fun or novel or competitive or urgent. And I now understand that and don't try and do things in a neurotypical way. I think I've basically given myself permission to not worry about all of these perfect solutions that people are selling online, because they don't work for me. They don't work for my brain. I can't plan out 6 months ahead. I'd love to be able to, but I can't do it. I can. I'm very good at making plans. I'm very bad at following the plans, because that's the boring bit. So I have structure, but with consistency, I allow myself the flexibility to, and this is something I learned from Ruth Poundwhite, to basically journal and think this morning, how do I want to promote this offer? Or how do I want to do this? And I have structures in place where each month has a theme, each week has a smaller theme, but then I allow myself a lot of flexibility to talk about that theme or share about it or wherever. So I have consistency in showing up, but not consistency in how I show up, if that makes sense. So I've definitely let go of that. But yeah, I think just in general, letting go of the neurotypical ways to do things, because that it doesn't work for me. And I've got another book recommendation, Drowning While Keeping House. It's by a lady who, well, she's on TikTok under she's domestic blisters over there and struggle care everywhere else. And she talked a lot about how, say, for example, housework and care tasks are not, they are morally neutral. They don't have any kind of, emptying the dishwasher is not a morally a thing to not doing it that time. I'm not explaining it very well, but basically there's a lot of things there that I had attached moral values to, and I let go of a lot of that. And I'm not a bad person if I don't brush my hair today, it's just something that I would find challenging some days as someone with ADHD, or it's not ideal if I don't deal with my emails today, but I'm not a morally bad person for not dealing with my emails. I'm just somebody with ADHD who hasn't dealt with their emails today, just factual, no kind of moral element about it. So yeah, so I guess consistency, doing things the neurotypical way, and attaching a moral judgment to a lot of basic tasks are things I've let go of.
I think that's an important lesson for everybody, really, is you're not a bad person or a bad business owner for doing or not doing anything.
I mean, can you imagine saying that to a friend? Like they said, oh, I haven't done my accounts this month. Oh, you're a really bad person. Yeah, you're really, really bad. You might just say, like, it's not ideal. Maybe you want to do that. Or, that's a mistake. You're not a bad or a good person. I mean, you're a bad person if you murdered your accountant, but not if you haven't done your accounts.
Yeah. And I think that is something that really helped me shift the way I think early on is, I can't remember who it was, but somebody said to me, when that voice starts going in your head, imagine you saying that to someone you know. And I mean, at the time as well, I was like such a people pleaser, so I was nice to everybody always. So when I would imagine myself saying horrible things to other people, it made me recoil. I felt like my entire body was clenching, and it really got me out of that habit and helped me sort of step away from some of that really vile inner critic nonsense that likes to plague us every now and again.
Yeah, and I mean, I am now I'm 4 weeks now into being on ADHD medication, and I don't think I realised until I was on the meds how strong that negative voice was constant in my head about everything. The constant, you're lazy, you're stupid. And actually, I guess that's another thing I've let go of, that belief that I'm lazy or stupid, because I'm neither of those things. But trying to do everything the neurotypical way had made me feel those things, whereas embracing being neurodivergent and having to find my own ways to do things has stopped that voice, I think. But I mean, the medication does help with the constant negative narration that tends to happen for people with ADHD, which you don't even realise is happening until you start the medication, and then it's quiet and you're like, oh, I don't feel really crap about myself all the time. But yeah, I think actually that's probably a big thing, letting go of a lot of the beliefs that you have built throughout your life because you're trying to be neurotypical and you're basing everything on a neurotypical judgment.
I mean, it makes sense that it's going to feel difficult if you are trying to make yourself do something that is not your way of doing it. Like, imagine if you tried to write everything with your non-dominant hand. Yes. It would feel so difficult, just like writing your name, writing your address. Whereas if you do it with your dominant hand, you can do it in 20 seconds. It immediately adds so much extra difficulty and so much extra judgment, because oh my god, how messy is my handwriting? Why does that look so awkward? It's not in a straight line.
And it's so freeing to be able to say I have to do a very dull task, it probably involves, like, for me, like a spreadsheet or something like that. And before, I'd really beat myself up that I couldn't do this boring task. And it's so freeing now to be able to say to myself, look, your brain isn't going to let you focus on this unless you make it fun, you make it novel, you add some kind of deadline to it or timer, or, you know, I need to beat the clock type thing, or competitive element of I need to do it with someone else, or body doubling. I know now that I need to add those things in to get the task done. There's no judgment. I just need to work out how to make that task more fun, or more, you know, those other things I've said. And I think that was really, really freeing for me. Instead of beating myself up, just say, right, how do I shift this into ADHD friendly gear, basically.
I really love your point about making actions neutral. And I want that to be the takeaway that everyone takes from this episode. Like, every single thing that you do in your business, out of your business, it is neutral. I mean, outside of, like you said, murders or other horrible crimes, for the most part, every action is neutral. And when you start seeing it as being neutral, suddenly things feel easier.
Yeah, they massively do. Yeah, because then it kind of goes back to what we were saying at the start. Then it's an experiment, you know, then it's just trying things out. And even then, it's not just a binary, they're a success or they're a failure. They're just something you're learning something new from.
And like, so much internal pain comes not from, you know, a task, not from an action, but from the judgment we make about that task or action.
Yeah, because that's what we've been taught. It's madness.
Our thoughts are little shits, aren't they, really?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, and I think we've just been taught that we should be, you know, ashamed if we're not, you know, organised is good, disorganised or spontaneous, bad. Perfectly clean Mrs. Hinch style house, good. Maybe that house that you go over to, that there might be stuff all over the place, but it's a real comforting home. But that's bad because it's not clean. It's not perfect. It's not perfectly tidy. And yeah, it's madness that we split these things into good or bad. I suppose that's how marketing happens. Because then we can say, do you want to stop having this bad thing? Have this good thing instead.
Well, and it's like tapping into those pain points, because pain points really are the judgments of how we think we should be most of the time.
Yeah. Told to us by media, magazines, stereotypes, not by what we actually think.
And I think that's really the overall theme of what we've been talking about today, isn't it? Do what you think is right. Do what you feel like you want to. That's the key.
Yeah, 100%. Just do what works for you, whether that's finding introvert-friendly ways to network, or whether that's finding, you know, a way to do social media that works for you, or even how you show up online. Like, it's been quite nice to be able to show up and just be messy me and not feel like I have to. And I don't mean like physically messy, but I'm quite transparent now that I am a bit messy and things are not going to be perfect, but I would rather put stuff out there than wait for it to be perfect. And I think it's, yeah, I'd just like everybody to stop feeling like they have to wait for things to be perfect and good.
So to wrap up, I have one more question. What is a song that makes you feel like your best self, that really just gets you in the mood?
Oh my God. Oh. Okay, this isn't the song, but I will say one song that I've been using a lot recently. So there's a TikToker I follow, and she always uses the Monster Inc. theme soundtrack for her like little vlogs that she does on there. I love it. And I've now discovered that if I play it when I'm doing a very boring task, it always makes the task more fun, because I can kind of imagine I'm like doing some kind of fun TikTok or something. So like if I have to unload the dishwasher, I play it, and it's only about 2 minutes long. So I get it done then. But that isn't the song. What was the prompt again?
A song
Exactly.
that makes you feel like your best self, that really gets you in the mood.
Mm. I've got a whole playlist. I know you've got a whole playlist. I've got loads of your playlists on my Spotify, so it's really hard to choose. But the one that is coming to mind is No Tomorrow by, and their name has Orson. Is it Orson? But No Tomorrow by Orson.
I'm really bad at band names.
It is. I always just ask Echo for it to just play No Tomorrow, and they always play it. But that is a banger, and actually probably quite in line with what we've been saying about experimentation, of just trying things and not being so attached to the outcome.
I love that. Well, I will add that to our Your Biz, Your Rules playlist. So everyone go give that a listen if you want to get in the zone. I'm also going to add the Monsters Inc. song.
It's just such a fun little song. I mean, Disney music generally, just stick it on in the background and you'll feel like you're walking along in your own little movie soundtrack.
Yeah, that's true. That's a valid life choice. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, I feel like there is so much goodness in this episode. And guys, if you haven't already, go back and listen to our first session, so last week's episode, because we really did dive deep into a lot of stuff that could genuinely make a radical impact in the way that you do business. So go give it a listen, go give Emma a follow, and I will see you next week. Thank you for listening to Your Biz, Your Rules. I know that we all like to listen to podcasts, watch videos, read articles or books or posts on Facebook, and not really do anything with that information. So I want to challenge you right now. I want to challenge you to take something from this episode, anything, and use it to spark action. Use it to activate some kind of change in the way you work and the way you live. Do yourself this service today. And tell me all about it on Instagram. Hop over, shoot me a DM, or share an Instagram story showcasing what action you are taking thanks to this episode. And of course, do all of the usual things. Subscribe, leave a review, let me know how much you love the show, and I will be back with you next week.